So yeah, I know, Steve, my fingerprints are going all over the place, right? So Mike, why don't you do this? Why don't you pop out and then pop back in, trying to use a cell phone, right? Caroline can walk you through that. And while Mike is doing that, I want to just share with you some of the key things from his book that are extremely helpful. They work for me in my own transformation. So this is the book that we're talking about today, Transform Yourself, Transform Your Organization, right? Transform yourself, transform your organization. All right, so he's going to pop out and then pop back in. So the first part of what he talks about is this vertical shift, right? So there's the horizontal shift and the vertical shift. And what he talks about is this vertical shift being about the you. Being about the you. What's inside you? What does it mean to be a servant leader? What does it mean what are the core characteristics and the core values that a leader must have, right? And so he talks about caring, character, communication, right? Capacity and consistency. So the key values, the key core characteristics that a leader must have, right? And so it really goes through this beautiful process of dissecting where you are as a leader in each of those 5 core characteristics, right? Building up, what you need, what gaps exist in your leadership right now, what gaps exist there so that you can build on that, because you're not going to change Joe and Schmo, right? Oh, I think I see you. I'm approving. I'm adding him in. Let's see. Everyone cross your fingers. Show him some love. This is definitely going to happen almost ASAP, right? Almost ASAP. So let's get you on in here. All right. Yes, we did it, Mike. Congratulations. We made it.
Sorry about that. I think it was all on my end. I apologize.
Not a worry in the world. I'm so happy that you are here. Everyone, I don't think you can see the comments, but I can still see the comments. So as we work through this, you guys show them some love, show them some questions, and I will relay those questions over. But go ahead and plop your phone down somewhere so that
I'm going to have to reset it here. I think the position I had it in is what was blocking me from joining you. So give me just a second here. I apologize.
Yeah, absolutely. I was as he's setting up his camera. Caroline, Michelle, Steve, you let us know if you can hear the both of us okay, and then we will get this party started.
How's that? Better?
It is much better. I want to just thank you. I know you're a book author, you're a consultant, you do a ton of work with organizations and leaders, and yet you took time out of your day for us. So I just want to first say a huge thank you. In the chat over here, there's all kinds of love for you. I don't know if you can see it, but everyone's cheering and they're just like, yay, we're so glad he's here.
Well, I'm grateful for that. Amongst all those things, apparently one thing I am not is technology savant. So sorry about that.
It's okay. We got you here and you're good to go. You're good to go. Everyone's saying that they can hear us both okay, so we are ready. We are ready to rock and roll.
Awesome.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right.
And I don't see their comments, so I'm going to have to rely on you, I guess.
Yes, sir. I will let you know.
All right.
I will let you know. They are saying thank you. They are saying we can hear you. Got you. There's all kinds of fun emojis in here for you. There's all kinds of good stuff going on here.
Nobody said it's about time this guy got on finally?
No,
right.
They did not. So I have to say, I stumbled upon your book, and I'm not even sure exactly how, but somehow it landed in my hands, and I was blown away. What a great job. What a simple, easy, consistent, understandable tool that you've provided for leaders who are looking to grow their leadership. So thank you.
My pleasure. I'm glad you had a chance to read it, and I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to just kind of, if you could share with us a little bit about your background, and then I know there's a bunch of questions that folks want to ask you. So let us know a little bit about your leadership, style, the types of groups that you work with, and how you got into this whole leadership thing in the first place.
Sure, not a problem. Happy to. So I guess the way I typically would introduce myself is around my purpose, and that's an important part of the book as well. But I am an individual who honestly believes my purpose, if I could describe it in a word, it's to be a bridge. And to put more words around it, it's to be a bridge of hope, helping people to get from where they are to where they want to go. So I always look for every platform possible that I can kind of live out that purpose. So I do that through executive coaching. I do that through consulting with teams and with organizations around culture. The authoring of the book was just another platform for me to be able to reach more people and living out that purpose that I believe I'm called for. And so that's kind of how I kind of position myself. My background is a combination of corporate experience and consulting experience. I spent about half my career with the Frito-Lay division of PepsiCo as a corporate executive there. And then the last probably 14, 15 years, it's been more focused on leadership development, organizational development, and doing my coaching and my consulting work, which again, I really just feel passionate about and feel very called to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. You're so open and it's simple, have a purpose and rock and roll with it. Yeah, yeah. So what do you find, a lot of your clients, supervisors and leaders, what do they struggle with most?
Well, that's a really good question. It varies quite a bit. Most times people will come to me, with a very specific need in their minds, which is, I just need to develop in these areas because my organization requires it of me, or I'm struggling in a particular area. So can I grow from a capability standpoint in this particular spot? So it comes from a lot of areas, but we end up always getting around to kind of the same questions and the same challenges and the same issues. And the best coachee I can work with or the best client I can work with is fundamentally at the end of the day somebody who's just interested in growing and learning. I mean, I do look for that learner's mindset. I work with clients and coachees across all industries, all levels, and the only common thing really is folks that are genuine about wanting to learn and grow. So ultimately, it comes back to that. There may be a specific symptom. Either, they individually decide that they want to step out and grow, or someone's telling them they need to develop in certain areas. But ultimately, we just need somebody that's pliable, that wants to learn, wants to get better, regardless of how they got there. As long as they're there, that's somebody that I enjoy working with.
Yeah, isn't that so true? You have a lot of supervisors who did really good at their job, right? They did really well and whatever that job was. And then they got promoted. And it's not the same stuff that makes them excellent as a leader that made them excellent in that first position.
Correct.
And so, yeah, you're right. Like folks just kind of either want the promotion or get promoted, but all of a sudden they're a leader and they might still be in that mindset of working as a worker. So I love that you're talking about this growth mindset piece. I think it's phenomenal.
And that is
Um,
fundamentally one thing I consistently see in organizations. And I don't care if it's a Fortune 100 organization, a 20-person organization, or I work with a lot of nonprofits, pick a nonprofit or a local church. Um, Inevitably, as they promote people into manager, supervisor type roles, very little of people management, soft skills, understanding people goes along with that promotion. And yes, so you get people who are probably historically individual contributors that continue in a manager role functioning that way. They've never shifted into what their primary role is. It used to be, I used to have 100 responsibilities and I had to perform them all. And now my role is more important, and how I function with people is more important than how I deliver on specific tasks and responsibilities.
Exactly. And so I want to pause here because I think I agree. This is an area where the shift isn't always discovered, right? You have I see some law enforcement folks here who are running analytical units who once were analysts and now, are responsible for the strategic development, right? For the building relationships, but they haven't made that shift,
Right.
right? And some other folks here who are running small businesses and and they're doing all the work still, right? And so what are some of the things that you say to somebody if they are just getting promoted to supervisor, or just up leveling their business? What do you say to them? What's the mindset shift that must be the first thing that happens?
Well, I mean, as people make that shift, quite honestly, it's just getting them just take a step back, think about maybe why they wanted to get into a leadership position in the first place. And then I really try to help them understand, what is it in their own makeup from strengths, talents, capabilities that they believe will contribute to them being a successful leader, put them into more of a servant leadership mindset, but really just getting them out of the focus on themselves and how they can serve and provide value to those people that they're now entrusted from a leadership position. I mean, I believe everybody leads, regardless of what role we're in and whether it's work or family or volunteering or coaching, whatever you do, everybody leads. And the people we lead deserve to be led well. They deserve that. So let's get busy about leading well. And again, part of that is just understanding what it is about me, why I want to be a leader, what I think I can do given the gifts and talents I have to be a leader. Because at the end of the day, we can all lead well, and we're all going to lead really, really differently. So I don't want people to think they have to lead like someone else. I read a book on Jack Welch, so I'm going to lead like Jack Welch. No, I want you to lead like who you are. Don't change to lead, just lead as yourself. And people will respect that because it'll be genuine, it'll be authentic, and that's what people want in their leaders.
I love that word, authentic, to really not change who you are, but up level your game, right? Up level your game and stay true to who you are. Serve your people, become that servant leader. Yeah, I like it. So I have some questions here that folks submitted ahead of time, to really get to understand, and work through some of their leadership and supervisory challenges. I was hoping to run some of them by you. Is that okay?
Sure. Look forward to it.
All right, great. And so for those of you who are listening right now, go ahead in the chat, write out as this is evolving for you, as you're listening to Mike in this conversation. Yes, Caroline, up level your game. Yes, exactly. And so as this is changing, as you're hearing this, feel free to plug into the chat or to the comments something that you want answered. Feel free to give some love, because I know Mike is over here on his time sharing it with us. So definitely, yes, Michelle, level up. She loves it. I like it. Yeah, level up. And so I have a couple questions, and then I'll get into their questions. Okay.
Okay.
So we had talked ahead of time, and so that we also have run a coaching business, and so we love this idea of coaching. What do you say, right? What do you say to somebody? What are your beliefs around a coach, right? Do you think everybody needs a coach? Do you think only the ones who are hurting need a coach? Who do you think needs a coach?
I mean, I personally believe that all of us need people speaking into our lives. So whether that's a coach, a mentor, whatever you want to call it, if we're not having somebody speak into our lives, we're missing out on a huge opportunity. From a professional standpoint, I mean, I encourage everybody to have a coach. You probably have a coach. I have a coach. There you go. That's just how we get better and how we improve. So again, if people have a mindset that's open to learning and growing, coaching's a very natural thing for them, because we've all had experience with coaches at some time in our life. I don't care if you're a musician or an athlete or what you are. I mean, the coach is there to understand where you're at, understand where you want to go, help you by introducing some new concepts and approaches and methods, help you practice those, all in this safe environment, self-container, so you can get better, and then help you apply those to when you go out into whatever your practice is or whatever you do for work. So I'm a big believer in people speaking into our lives, and coaches are just one way of doing that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, when you look at some of the most successful people, athletes, like you were saying, and some other successful folks, they all have coaches. They recognize that they don't know it all, and that somehow and sometimes they're looking through these clouded lenses that might have been good enough to get them to a certain space, but it is the lens of somebody else seeing it from a different perspective that really fuels our own success. So I love that you feel the same way, and I love that you have a coach too, because it just shows, mentors and coaches, it just shows the up leveling that can happen even if you're writing books and coaching other people, you continue to grow and have that mindset. That's
Oh,
awesome. I
you
love it.
have to. You definitely have to. And I always use the very simple edict when it comes to coaching and really just people making changes, period. And you hit on this a little bit in a question earlier in terms of what I look for. I'm a firm believer that, people will change, people will grow, and people will actually bring on a coach, either because they know enough and they want to, or they heard enough and they have to. And I know that's really simplistic, but 99% of the time that applies. So if somebody knows enough, they're self-aware, they recognize that they may not, have all the skills they want to have. For some entrepreneurs that I work with, they've started a company that's 5 or 10 years old, and they look to where it's going to be 10 years from now, and they realize the skills I have today are not going to be the skills my organization needs 10 years from now. So they know enough and want to. Unfortunately, probably 80 to 90% of the people I work with fall into the latter category, which is they heard enough and have to. Either they've broken down, they're struggling individually, they're struggling as a business, their supervisors telling them they need help. Again, regardless of how they get to the point, whether they know enough and want to or heard enough and have to, as long as they recognize they need to change and move and grow, that's okay.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Yeah. And so I wonder, for the folks listening to this live, or if you're listening to the replay, I wonder, where are you? Are you in the place where, you are spinning or someone is telling you, fix it? Are you in that spot, or are you in that other space of, I recognize that I want to learn and grow and accelerate myself at this point. So let us know in the chat where you're at with that. Are you at that one of two of those? Because that's kind of what puts leaders in positions, like you said, in positions of coaching, right? And so one thing I would say, what are your thoughts on title? Does someone have to hold a title in order to work with you or work with coaches overall? Do they have to be an official, leader, supervisor, CEO in order to do that?
Not for me.
Okay.
Again, if they want to grow, that's a qualifier, because I believe we all lead in some form or fashion in all different aspects of our lives. So no, I work with CEOs, I work with, C-suite, want-to-be's, I work with first-time managers, and I work with, ER doctors, I work with local pastors, I work with folks that run nonprofits, I work with athletes. So it's varied for sure. So that there's no prerequisite. It's not only for a certain title or for a certain function, that's for sure.
I love it. Yeah. Because I think sometimes people think I'm not good enough to get coached, and that's completely untrue. We have a bunch of comments happening over here, a bunch of folks saying, I am a learner, I want to learn, I want to grow. We have Andrew saying, I was spinning and realized I needed to learn and grow and needed help to gain that clarity. And now he has a whole new perspective. Andrew is one of our success stories. So thank you, Andrew, for that. And there's just a bunch of people chiming in saying, yes, they are wanting to grow. They get that concept. So that's great.
Awesome.
Very nice. We do have doctors here. We do have multiple professions, engineers, law enforcement, military, all kinds of folks here. And so if this is resonating with you folks, definitely grab the book and reach out. And, this could be a really great opportunity for you. Okay. All right. So here we go. You talked about this well-defined leader and having purpose and principles.
Right.
This is a growth area that I absolutely love. So tell me what you meant by this well-defined, purpose-driven leader.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. Again, so once you kind of check the box in terms of having a learner's mindset, I always jump into my relationships with people focusing on being a well-defined leader. And there's really two components of that I focus on. And one is based on my firm belief that each of us does have a unique purpose, and spending some time and figuring out exactly what we believe that purpose is. And that comes from, looking at our natural talents and strengths, a combination of the experiences we've had, we get feedback from people on what we do well, what we don't do well. People come to us for certain things and not other things. There's a lot of things that contribute to that. Add in your passion for what you really love to do and start trying to figure out what that purpose is. Because for me, I always tell people I'm going to work with them both on a vertical basis and on a horizontal basis, but we have to do vertical first. And the vertical is getting the purpose figured out and then getting your individual principles figured out. So those are my individual values. So once I figure out my purpose, this is what I feel like I should be doing in life. Then the principles are, this is how people should experience me when I'm living out that purpose. Am I going to be a person of character, integrity, transparency, honesty, whatever those principles are that are important to you? Your purpose should always be the same. Your principles should always be the same. And that's what I call being a well-defined leader. I mean, there was one of the original owners and first general manager of the Dallas Mavericks basketball team. I'm in Dallas, so I'll use the Dallas Mavericks. But
Yeah.
he very simply said one time, before you figure out what type of leader you want to be or are going to be, you have to figure out who you are. And to me, that was the perfectly simplistic way of defining a well-defined leader. Before you're attempting to reach out and impact and affect and lead other people with your words and actions, the horizontal stuff, figure out the vertical stuff. Who am I? What am I here on this earth to do? How I want to go about my business. So, I mean, the benefits of that, obviously, you're going to be more impactful, but also as a leader, once you have that set within you, you become what I call then one of the greatest benefits we give our people is you become a non-anxious leader because all the variations of the day and the ups and downs of the activity of work, they don't affect you the way they would if you weren't well defined. But since you're grounded in your purpose and grounded in your principles, you become more non-anxious. And being non-anxious is a huge gift to the people you lead. Last thing you want to do as a leader is be an anxiety broker. You're anxious, and therefore you're going to make everybody around you anxious. And that makes everybody inefficient and ineffective, and it's a hugely unhealthy system to be a part of. So to me, the well-defined leader is critical as a starting point for anybody that's trying to figure out, I want to be better at being a leader. Does that help define that?
Yeah, that's terrific because and you probably see it in you do see it in your coaching business, and I see it in mine all the time as we come into these situations where the supervisor's putting out fires all day and so stressed out, and and that creates a culture of stress, right? A lot of folks are chiming in, anxiety broker. Several people say right up my alley. They have these responsibilities and they're so interested in just making things settle. Andrew says yes, fantastic. A bunch of folks are chiming in. I'll go back and let them know what they're saying.
And it also comes in handy too, as you hear people all the time that maybe struggle with being an imposter syndrome, or comparing myself to other people, and am I good enough? Fundamentally, if you have your purpose clear, and you have your principles clear, then the concept of being an imposter or comparing myself to others really doesn't apply anymore. Because you know who you are and how you're going to lead and what's important to you and how people are going to experience you, or how people are going to experience you. And that's what matters the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that like you said, reduces the amount of anxiety because you're clear on the vision, you're clear on the purpose, you have the clarity, you have the direction. You're the team chiropractor, right? Yep. And so you're aligning everyone with that as well, and so it's less frantic, it's more focused, it's more intentional. We have Judith is loving what you're sharing. Caroline says we just talked about this in our RG, which is one of our programs, our call last night. That's right, this imposter piece. And what I found, I mean, I've in my own experience, is that when I actually stopped and listened, most of the people around me had the same level of imposter syndrome that I did. And I'm looking at these way higher ups, and I'm like, they don't know what they're doing, because I don't know what I'm doing.
Very true.
So I'm gonna share some of these other questions that they have with you, because I really like the horizontal, the team culture piece on it. But I have some specific questions, so I want to make sure I don't steal all the time. Okay. All right. So is that okay with you? All right, good. So one question we have is, how do leaders face unrealistic demands from higher ups. So if you're the leader and you have your higher up calling you in on weekends and texting you all the time, like how do you as a leader set the culture for your team when that's happening for you?
Right. So part of that, again, back to your principles and who you are, that by default is going to help you kind of define what I'll call your rules of engagement and how you are going to participate in work and how you're going to have your work life and your non-work life harmonize a little bit. So again, being very grounded in your purpose and principles allows you to at least think clearly about how you want to do that within work. Um, in terms of setting the rules of engagement, there's two sides of that. One is, being clear about what it is you're willing to invest into your work life and why that's important. You've got to get very clear on that. But what I think a lot of people fail with at times, and this comes in any type of communication around change, and that is taking the time to educate other people about the decisions you've made. So if I've decided say I've always worked 60 hours a week and I'm starting a new role and I have a new supervisor and I need to harmonize life and work a little bit better. And I'm telling myself I've got to get it to 45 hours a week. That's just what I have to do. So I've made that decision. I'm setting down some rules of engagement on how I'm going to proceed. But if I don't tell the people around me who have been used to me working 60 hours a week and used to answering texts and emails on Saturdays and Sundays, if I don't tell them I made a change, the expectation gap is going to be huge. So if I take the time to communicate to them, I've made a decision, here's why, and here are the implications of that. I'm not going to be available on Sundays. I'm not going to respond to text messages on Saturday evenings, whatever those rules of engagement, guardrails you put into place. To me, the most important part is the communication. Take the time to explain to the people around you if you've made changes, why you made the changes, what they're going to be, and what they can expect. Now, there may be some negotiating on that and some debating on that. Hopefully, you'll stick more to your purpose and your principles than someone else's, but definitely ensure you're having the communication around the change, because just because you've made changes internally doesn't mean people around you understand those changes took place.
I think that's brilliant. I think this idea of communicating clearly once you've made that decision is so key. I was talking to a supervisor, or what's today? Thursday. So on Tuesday, and she actually implemented this strategy at her work where half the team had Friday off and half the team have Monday off. And if it's an emergency, you bug the people on Fridays. And if it's an emergency, you bug the people on Mondays. Otherwise, everyone's on the same page and we respect it.
Right.
And so it reminds me of this, you remind me of this conversation. People are loving this, by the way, the fact that you can set these boundaries, that it's okay to set these boundaries. They're happy to hear you say, communicate what you want, negotiate about it, but communicate what you want and what's going to make you have that work-life harmony you're seeking.
Right.
I like
and again,
that.
I don't want to misrepresent, some of the reality of that is, when you make those decisions and you communicate it, they may be out of alignment with the expectations of your supervisor, and that may cause, a decision that has to be made. But again, it'll be a conscious, principle-based decision you're making, so you'll be comfortable with it if you have to make it. But 9 times out of 10, if you establish those principles and those guidelines and those rules of engagement and communicate those the right way, people will respect those. And then from there, the next thing is you have to respect other people's principles and rules of engagement as well. So it's inbound and outbound.
Exactly. To respect them and set that culture of respect up. I like it. Fantastic. So we have folks are chiming in. Creating boundaries is amazing, but make sure to communicate. Yeah, and the boundaries may not be boundaries that everyone agrees with, and so that's when you go back to those principles, like Mike was saying, and figure out what's right for you, and what compromise can be made if it can be made.
Right.
Yeah. So we have another question. What do leaders do when their people are not pulling their weight? I'm sure you get this question quite a bit.
Well, I have a concept in my book around a leader of self-awareness that I call mirror versus window. And I always start there because regardless of what the problem is, In this case, the interpretation is people aren't pulling their weight, so that's a problem. Whenever there's a problem, I always tell people there's a very, very good chance that, in this case, I'll just put myself first person. There's a really good case that I contributed something to this. So the mirror versus window just says, look in the mirror before you look out the window. So if somebody's not pulling their weight, I would encourage all leaders to start with the mirror, which is, if I believe Jane or Joe isn't pulling their weight, what have I contributed to that? What might I have done differently? Because at the end of the day, if they're not pulling their weight, my questions back to the leader are things like, who hired them?
Yeah.
Who's responsible for developing and training them? Who's responsible for holding them accountable? So if they're not pulling their weight, the answer to all those questions is really neat. So I got to figure out, what am I contributing to this that's causing them to, again, if I'm telling myself the story, whether it's true or not true, that they're not pulling their weight, let me pull out the mirror, let me figure out my piece first. Because if I have to have a conversation with somebody, and if they're genuinely not carrying their weight and there's certain things that they're not doing at standard, and I need to talk to them about that, it sure would be helpful if I was a little transparent and at least shared going in some of the things that maybe I was contributing to that first. Then you
I like
then
it.
you have kind of set the groundwork for hopefully a productive conversation. So that's always where I would start. Mirror versus window. Folks, if you have one window, they have 10 mirrors. Use them often.
Yeah. I know there's some people here who are public sector people, and so they are challenged, right? They think that they don't have that same power, and you're really saying in your book and in your consulting, your support for leaders is that, yes, you do. It starts with you. It starts with looking in the mirror first, and then discovering some solutions together.
Right.
Yeah. Great. One really great question right now was, how do leaders separate work from home life? any suggestions right now, and as we have these transitioning communities, working from home and some fluctuations and some, all the stuff, right?
Yep.
What advice do you have for leaders for really working better with this work home kind of harmony piece?
Wow, that's tough. And I'm glad we're using the word harmony, because I think work-life balance is a misnomer. There's no balance there, right? We just try to keep them in harmony, but if it was in balance, I'm not sure that would work out on either side. So I guess there's a couple ways of looking at it. The big picture, I would always come back to, again, purpose and principles. If I'm clear about my purpose, so I'll use myself as an example. If I want to be a bridge and help people get from where they are to where they want to go, I have a way of how I live that out in the workplace. But as a husband and as a father and as whatever in my household I am, that's another platform I'm living out that purpose. So I have to view those two purposes of having high value, both of them. So I'm gonna live out my purpose through my individual principles as best I can in both those places. So I start from that standpoint, because the moment I feel like I'm not living my purpose, say at home, because I'm putting too much time and energy into work, I should have some self-awareness around that. I mean, I should be able to alert myself and going, wow, I'm not living it up at home. I need to do a better job of balancing these two things out. So that's more of the philosophical approach. I mean, the tactical stuff, I mean, everybody has their own tricks. I read this week about someone was encouraging people to take fake commutes. So, if you're used to commuting 30 minutes every day, you should, at the end of your workday, when you work in your home office, jump in your car and drive for 30 minutes. If that works for you, great. I think there certainly needs to be some transition time. Figure out what your version of transition is. I would prefer not to put everybody on the highway for 30 minutes if they don't need to be on the highway. Maybe you can walk around your block. That might be a little better for you and the environment. Who knows? Take your dog around the block for a walk. That benefits both of you. But I think everybody has to figure out what those release valves are. again, if you need 30 minutes of transition time between the two, so you can completely leave one behind and you can start focusing on what you need to focus on when you're at home, whatever that is, just be conscious of it, be intentional about it, and be consistent with it. So I don't have a prescription. Everybody's going to have their own version of that. I just hope everybody recognizes the need to have their own version of that.
I like it, that transition time. We're getting some love for you in the comments here. They are really enjoying that. You didn't say balance, you said work-life harmony. You know, we talk a lot about that. I know you're relatively new to the page overall, but we talk a lot about this work-life integration, you know, finding your pause and wellness and, you know, really making sure that you're paying attention to that. So I really like that you talked about not only finding it, but implementing it consistently and persistently, right? So I like that a lot.
And the other part of that too is, you know, regardless of what we do in our lives, we have this beautiful gift that 9 times out of 10 we don't ask for, and that is feedback. Other people will alert us to when that harmony is out of sync, probably quicker than we'll figure out on our own. So the other key thing is just to open up your ears and open up your eyes to the people that speak into your life. And when they tell you that they think there's a little misstep in the harmony, take it seriously and address it.
I love it. I love it. Everyone loves it. Alicia, Judith, Michelle, they're all popping in here, sharing some love for you. So you're saying stuff that makes sense, that I think this group has been working on for a long time, and to hear it from you and your perspective, working with, you know, different arenas and different folks. And someone, I think it was Steve, mentioned earlier, you know, that it must really provide you with this incredible depth of service that you can provide to folks when you have worked with so many industries. So that's quite wonderful. So we have, what are your, oh, I have 2 more. I hope we have about 5 more minutes, if that's okay. Is that okay with you? Okay.
Sure.
I said 20 minutes and we've been 45 minutes. So if I can steal you for 5 minutes, we'd be ever grateful. Show us
I think it took me almost 20 minutes to get connected to you today. So I'm yours as long as you want me.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, here we go. So we have a question from one of the folks is, how can leaders become more comfortable with delegating?
Good question. The first thing is, and I work with folks with this all the time. When we say we have trouble delegating, we got to figure out what that really means. Why do we have trouble delegating? There's something else going on. I like to talk about triggers. All of us have triggers that make us, you know, respond in certain ways. A lot of times those triggers around control or losing control, competency. Do people not see us competent? Do people appreciate us, not appreciate it? And we get triggered on certain things, then we react in certain ways. So step 1 is spend a little time with your coach, with your mentor, with a friend, trying to understand when you say I have trouble delegating, what's driving that? Is it because you're really about control and giving up that control is extremely hard? Is there something else involved in that's causing you to hesitate around delegating it? And just be honest with yourself. I mean, you may think, you know, you are the brightest person in the world and no one else could possibly come up with a solution close to yours. So therefore, delegating it to them makes no sense to you. Well, you probably need to play that song back and understand what's driving that to understand why you're struggling. So I don't know if there's one magic answer as to, you know, why we don't delegate or how I could delegate more. At the end of the day, I would flip that thing around a little bit and say, it's not so much about you. Think about it from the other person's perspective. As a leader, especially as a servant leader, that person, we're serving them. Okay. How are we serving them by not delegating to them? Are we helping them grow? Are we helping them develop? Are we doing anything good for them? So I would look at it more from the kind of the other way around, switch the lens around a little bit and say, if I'm going to be a good servant leader, let's make this less about me and my ability or inability or my hangups around delegating, but what will the benefit be to the people that I lead if I'm able to actually delegate? And I mean completely delegate. Not, here's
Mhm.
two options. Which one do you want to follow? Here's
Yeah.
the problem. I trust you. I think you have all the skills in the world to be able to do this. You come back to me and tell me how you want to handle it. Because they're going to develop, they're going to grow, they're going to be great leaders later on because of that example.
Yeah, that ownership that you've allowed them to develop,
But
that trust that you put in them. We're getting all kinds of love for you on this one. Lots of folks are chiming in. Andrew loves that you're starting with the baseline, right? What the real issue is, and it might not be the delegating, it might be something inside. Judith and Erica, a bunch of folks are just flowing and saying how much this is a hot topic, right? Because these are our babies and we don't want to give them away. And so that there's that internal rooted kind of thing. And so you're actually suggesting, which is something that I'm standing for too, is, you can't create leaders when they all of a sudden become titled, right? You're creating leaders all along. And so you're saying, give them the opportunity to make the mistakes, own the problem, find the solutions, and they may do a lot better than you actually think.
yeah,
So I like it.
and you'll actually
Awesome.
get more comfortable with delegation.
Yes. And once you've delegated one or two things, next thing you know, you're like, I need this, you need to do that, and I'm done, and I'm going to do all this strategic thinking, because that's what I should be doing as a
There you
leader,
go.
thinking about expansion, thinking about my team, thinking about strategic thinking. Ria's in agreement. We have a bunch of folks chiming in. Steve is a bit of a control freak. It's okay, Steve. You're in the right place. We are here with you.
Exactly. We all are to some extent.
Yes, yes. What are your top 3 tips for a brand new supervisor? What are the 3 things that they can do today
Yep.
that's going to get them, or maybe they've been a supervisor for a while, but they're kind of like new to these concepts. So what are the simple 3 things that they can do today to begin to lead themselves into leadership?
Yeah. And we'll make this really, really simple. The first thing I've already mentioned is be yourself, especially if it's your first time as a leader. Don't try to lead the way you saw somebody else lead. Be yourself, utilize your talents, your strengths, your abilities, but be authentic and be genuine, because that's the best thing you can give to people is your authenticity. Okay, so just be yourself. The second thing I always tell people is, because when you're first going to a leadership position, I think you go in thinking, now I should have all these answers and I should be able to tell people what we're doing. You know what? Just ask a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions, be a good listener, and communicate well. Okay, you don't have to have all of the answers, but you probably should have all the questions and figure out
Yeah.
what those are and just really practice and be conscious about being a good leader. Okay. So those are 2 things. Let's see, do I have a magical third one that's really, really simple? I would say, if anything else, keep learning. Okay.
Mhm.
Always look for something new you can do, something you can pick up, something you can add in terms of a skill set, whether it's a technical skill set or a people skill set. But um, don't get to a leadership position and a supervisory position and think your growing and learning is over. It's really just beginning.
Yeah, I like it. So be authentic. We have a ton of love for you happening right now. I know you don't see it, but I want to express that to you. Be authentic is a big deal. Listen, listen,
Ask
listen,
questions.
and
Ask questions. Gosh.
yes, ask questions. And that's where that imposter syndrome comes in, because there's this line between feeling like the imposter, like I don't belong here, I'm not good enough, right? And then saying, no, I'm going to ask questions because that's what Mike Marino said to do. And if Mike Marino says to do it, then you got to ask the questions. And then the last piece of it all, tying it all together, is continuously learning. And whether that's through some beautiful podcasting sessions that you love to listen to, or coming to Tribe and listening to Mike Marino and some of the other folks we have on here, or getting a coach like Mike, like our team. I think learning and growing is so key. I hired a business coaching team a couple of years ago, which was probably the biggest financial investment I ever made in myself. Before that, I had a thinking Bob Proctor coach, right? So the thinking into results piece, and now I'm in coaching programs, and so I think and you are too, and so I think the the idea that we can do everything and have to do everything on our own is gone,
Mhm.
right? And so really maximizing the talents and passions and pathways of other people to get you along lines of where you're going is so key. So I love that you have that growth piece in there. That's so important.
Good.
So Michelle is saying, then you do it, just do it. Yes, yes, Michelle. Alicia is saying, this is great. Caroline feels lucky to be involved in all this, all kinds of yummy stuff. Yes, beautiful. So, you know, what's the next step, right? So this, because I know you've generously given so much of your time already, and I feel like I would want to be coached. I'd like to tell me what I need to do, and I want to spend some time with you one-on-one. But we can't do that right now because everyone's here. But folks are saying, I'm listening to Mike. The words of keeping boundaries around my. I'm not sure what that was, Steve. You kind of disappeared on me. I'm going to see if I can find you again. Okay, there we go. Any questions, extra questions for Mike while we have him on here for one last second? We have a lot of folks who are saying, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. They're really excited and have grabbed some gems already. Great advice. Darcy says, I saw Katie on here too, Judith. I'm seeing you all, and Mike, I'll give you like a short synopsis. There's lots of people just saying this was really great, and they're so happy that you were here. And thanks so much. Thanks so much. And so, you know, for those of you who, you know, want to up level yourself today, if you want something really, really simple to do, this is a great start. This book right here, Transform Yourself, Transform Your Organization. Ria asks you, Mike, if you're ready for one more question, what would your advice be for leading without authority or no title? How can you be the leader even if you don't have the title in your agency, in your company?
Right. And I think that's where true leadership comes into play. Like I said before,
Yes.
we all lead, whether you recognize it or not. You are leading in some form or fashion because, you know, leadership comes down to people listen to our words and they watch our actions. And our hope as a leader is those words and actions, as they accumulate over time, you know, motivate people, inspire people to, you know, be the best they can be. The whole concept behind the book is if you want a, you know, a world-class organization, you want a world-class team, you want to bring out the best in an organization, well, you got to bring out the best in yourself first. So start there. So we all lead, and never, ever, ever think it's attached to a title. In fact, I think that's the biggest mistake we make, is that somehow we feel like, you know, we've been knighted, you know, with the title, and therefore leadership comes with that. So whatever your role is, whatever your responsibilities are, I mean, I don't care if it's your first job out of school or if you're 40 years of experience into something. You've been placed there for a reason. You're going to have an opportunity to lead, and I would just say, just take advantage of those opportunities. You know, don't hesitate, but be conscious of it. You know, be very intentional about, you know, opportunities to lead, and don't believe it has to be. Again, I always feel like people sense that leadership is somehow demonstrated in these milestone moments, like, you know, once a year a CEO stands up and casts this great vision, or, you know, there's some big problem going on and the leader comes in and solves it. But at the end of the day, what leadership is, it's the aggregation of all and the collection of all these small, minute to minute, day to day, conversation to conversation things that get added together. That's the impact of your leadership. So don't view it maybe as, you know, I never get that opportunity to speak in front of 200 people because I'm not a vice president. No, think about the people that are around you today and the impact you can have today with your words and your actions. And because those are going to add up over time, and the adding up of those things are really going to manifest itself into what type of leader you really are and what kind of impact you're having as a leader.
Impeccable, absolutely impeccable. These small, it doesn't matter what your title is, it's everyday small, you know, leadership opportunities. I love it, love it, love it. We have several people who are like, I just grabbed the book, I can't wait to read it. So I'm glad about that, and I think you guys are going to really be impressed with the book the way that I was. And certainly impressed with you, Mike, the language that you use, the intention, the non-titled, respect, authentic, listening, growth mindset thing that you have been sharing this entire hour with us. So we're so thankful for you. This wraps up our session. We have all kinds of love. There's all like things happening. There's like things over here happening. And so you'll have to go back and take a look at it, or I'll screenshot some of what's happening. But there's fun things happening over here.
I will look forward to seeing it.
Everyone, yes, thank you. And I want to personally thank you for taking time. I mean, I'm a stranger, right? I just call you up one day and I'm like, hey, you'd be great over here. And here you are. And I'm so thankful that you took a risk on us and came here and talked. And so whether someone's listening here on the live, or, this video is going to be stored in our YouTube and in a variety of locations. And so, my hope is that this time that you spent today serves the folks who are here live, the folks who are going to listen to the replay, and the folks who see this, outside of that, because you provided an incredible service. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful for you and all the work that you do. I'm certainly grateful for the folks that participated today, the opportunity to join you. It's been a blessing for me. So happy to do it. If people read the book, if you have any questions, any thoughts, anything you want to share with me, just email me directly. Let me know what you're thinking. If I can help you in any way, happy to do so.
That's so generous. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And so for the rest of you, we will see you back here. We're actually going to, next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, we're going to come back to this table right here. And we're going to kind of dissect what you all did with this information, what inspiration Mike gave to you and how you applied it throughout the week. And we're going to dive in a little bit deeper into your experience and your application. So join us here next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So thank you so much, Mike. We appreciate you. And the rest of you have a wonderful afternoon and be the leaders that you and your teams need you to be. All right. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.